Hey guys, tonight we are going to peel back the heavy velvet curtain of romanticized history and step squarely into the mud. We aren't looking at the polished armor of knights or the pristine gowns of queens. Instead, we're going to inhabit the itchy wool tunics of the people who actually did all the work. We're going to talk about the silence, the cold, the strange obsession with left hands, and the crushing social anxiety of the Middle Ages. It's a world where a sneeze could summon a demon and where your best friend was probably a shovel you named Dave. But fair warning, if you were actually dropped into this timeline, let's be real, you probably wouldn't survive the first winter. You'd likely drink the water, insult a goose, or try to read a sign, and that would be the end of you. So before you get comfortable, guys, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment letting me know where in the world you are drifting off from and what time it is on your side of the screen. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing on a road. Well, road is a generous term. It's more of a suggestion carved into the earth by centuries of misery and cartwheels. A ribbon of churned brown sludge that threatens to swallow your boots whole if you stand still for too long. And that's the first thing you notice about this life. The stillness is a lie. There is a pervasive myth in our modern consciousness that the medieval peasant was a static creature. We tend to imagine you, the average 13th century serf, as a sort of human mushroom. You sprout in a village, you farm the same 3 acres of turnips. You stare at the same patch of gray sky, and eventually you decompose in the local churchyard, having never ventured further than the distance a strong man could throw a rock. We assume your world is incredibly small, bordered by the tree line and the river, but the reality of your existence is surprisingly restless. You are moving. You are almost always moving. The truth about medieval life is that it is a state of constant, low energy relocation. You don't have a forever home. That concept is a luxury for the distant future, reserved for people with mortgages and insulation. For you, stability is an accident, not the norm. You move because the universe of the Middle Ages is actively trying to shake you off its back. Consider the harvest. You spend months breaking your back in the fields, coaxing wheat out of soil that is frankly tired of your nonsense. But then, the rains come early, or the rains don't come at all, or a blight turns your potential bread into black slime. If you stay, you starve. It's that simple. There is no government relief fund, no supermarket to bridge the gap. So, you pack. Packing is easy because you own almost nothing. You wrap your iron cooking pot in a rag. That pot is worth more than your life, by the way. You take your blanket, which smells of wood smoke and old sheep, and you grab your tools. You don't have suitcases, you have a sack and a hand cart if you're lucky. You round up the family and you start walking. You aren't exploring, you aren't traveling in the sense of seeing the sights, you are engaging in a slow motion flee. You trudge to the next town or the next duchy, hoping that their harvest was better, hoping there is a lord who needs extra hands to shear sheep or dig ditches. You are essentially an economic refugee in your own country, drifting from failure to potential failure. Then there is the debt. In a world where currency is scarce and credit scores don't exist, debt is a physical weight. You might owe the local miller a percentage of grain you couldn't grow. You might owe the church a tithe you can't pay. When the debt collectors, who are usually large men with very little patience, start asking questions, the most logical financial strategy is to simply not be there anymore. A significant portion of the traffic on these muddy medieval roads consists of people quietly walking away from their financial obligations. It's the original ghosting, only it involves physically ghosting an entire zip code. And let's not forget the wars. We read about the great battles, the clash of kings, the strategic movements of cavalry. But for you, down here in the mud, war is just a season. Like winter or drought. It's a recurring natural disaster. When the armies come through, they don't just fight each other. They eat everything. They trample the fields you just planted. They burn the fences you just built, so when you hear the rumble of horses in the distance, or see the smoke rising from the village 3 miles over, you don't grab a sword and defend your honor. You grab your kids and you run into the woods. You become a forest dweller for a month, living off berries and silence, waiting for the noblemen to finish their violent dispute over lines on a map you've never seen. When the coast is clear, you drift back or you drift on. This constant shuffling creates a strange psychological landscape. You are wary of strangers, yet you are constantly surrounded by them on the road. You pass pilgrims wearing badges from shrines they have visited, primitive tourist souvenirs that prove they walked to Canterbury or Santiago de Compostela. You pass tinkers, peddlers selling ribbons and dubious salves, and other families looking just as tired as you. Historians still argue whether this mobility created a unified culture or a fractured one, debating just how bound the serfs actually were to their master's land in practice versus in theory. The law said you were tied to the soil, property of the Lord. But the reality was that the roads were porous. If you walked far enough and nobody came looking, you were free, or at least free to be poor somewhere else. It's a life of heavy, plodding steps. You feel the uneven ground through the thin leather of your soles, if you have shoes at all. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and unwashed bodies. You are navigating a world without maps. Your GPS is a rumor you heard from a monk 3 villages back, or a vague instruction to turn left at the big oak tree that looks like a witch. This is the baseline of your existence, not the cozy hearth fire, but the road, the squeak of a cartwheel that needs grease, the anxiety of the horizon. You are a shark that has to keep swimming, or in this case, a peasant who has to keep shuffling just to stay alive. It is a grind. It is exhausting. And as the sun sets, casting long, violet shadows across the ruts in the road, you realize that you aren't really a resident of a village. You are a resident of the journey itself. You stand in a small, dimly lit alcove, shifting your weight from one foot to the other. The air here is different from the outside. It's heavy with the smell of oak gall ink, musty parchment, and the distinct dry scent of a man who spends too much time indoors thinking about Latin declensions. You are here because you have a problem. You have caught feelings. In the modern world, romance is a private affair. It happens in the blue glow of a smartphone screen, in whispered voice notes, in the secret encrypted tunnels of the internet. If you want to tell someone you like their face, you just type it and hit send. It's instant, direct, and crucially, it's just between the two of you. But here, in the medieval reality, privacy is a concept as alien as germ theory or reliable dentistry. You are illiterate. This isn't a judgment on your intelligence. It's just a standard operating procedure for about 90% of the population. You can read the clouds to predict rain. You can read the tracks of a fox in the mud, but you cannot read the alphabet. The squiggles on a page look like chicken scratches to you. Unfortunately, the object of your affection lives 3 villages away, and shouting is not an option. So, you have to hire a professional. You are standing in front of a scribe. Maybe he's a low-level priest trying to make some extra coin on the side, or maybe he's a professional ghostwriter with ink-stained fingers and a permanent expression of boredom. He is the medieval equivalent of an internet service provider, but with more attitude. You clear your throat. You feel foolish. You want to say something intimate, something tender. You want to tell your beloved that her eyes remind you of the morning sky, or that you miss the way she laughs. But saying these things out loud to a stranger who is currently picking a piece of lunch out of his teeth with a quill effectively kills the mood. Go on then, the scribe says, dipping his pen into the pot. I haven't got all day. Is this a business transaction or a wooing? It's a wooing, you mumble, and so begins the excruciating process of public intimacy. You dictate your heart's deepest desires while a third party critiques your flow. You say, "Tell her I miss her warm embrace." The scribe pauses, looks at you over his spectacles, and sighs. He thinks that sounds a bit peasantish, a bit crude, so he decides to fix it for you. On the parchment, he writes something that translates roughly to: the sender wishes to convey his spiritual longing for the recipient's virtuous presence. He has sanitized your passion. He has run your raw, messy human emotion through a filter of bureaucratic politeness. You are no longer a lover yearning for your partner. You are a petitioner submitting a formal request for affection. It's an awkward performance. You are trying to be vulnerable, but you are also acutely aware that the scribe is charging you by the line. Every adjective costs you a fraction of a day's wages. You have to be concise with your love. You can't ramble. You have to budget your heartbreak. "I love you" is cheap. "I love you more than the sun and the stars" might cost you a chicken. The materials themselves add to the friction. Writing isn't done on crisp, white paper. It's done on parchment, dried, stretched animal skin. It fights the pen. You can hear the scratch, scratch, scratch of the quill, a sound like a tiny claw dragging across a drum. It is a slow, rhythmic, hypnotic sound, but it lacks the fluidity of a text message. There is no backspace. If the scribe makes a mistake, he has to scrape the ink off with a knife. This dynamic means that your private relationship is actually a ménage à trois involving you, your partner, and the local clergy. Your secrets are not safe. The scribe knows you are worried about your mother's cough. He knows you are insecure about your harvest. He knows you think your neighbor is stealing your turnips. He becomes the repository of the entire village's gossip, simply because he holds the pen. But it gets worse. Let's say the letter is written. It is sealed with a blob of wax, a security measure that is more symbolic than actual, like a "keep out" sign on an unlocked door. The letter travels to the next village, carried by a merchant or a traveler. When it arrives, your beloved receives it. But guess what? She can't read either, so she has to find her own reader. She takes your letter to her local priest or scribe. Now, a fourth person enters the relationship. Her scribe breaks the seal and reads your words out loud. And he probably reads them in a flat, monotone voice, stripping away whatever romance managed to survive the first scribe's editing. Imagine having your most intimate text messages read out loud by a DMV employee to your crush in a crowded room. That is medieval romance. Your beloved stands there, listening to a stranger say, "The sender wishes to convey his spiritual longing." She has to react in real time, with an audience. She can't blush in private. She can't reread the line to savor it. She gets one acoustic transmission of your love, filtered through the nasal voice of a bored cleric. Historians still argue whether this lack of textual privacy shaped the very nature of medieval emotions. Did people love differently because they knew they were being watched, or did they simply develop a thicker skin for embarrassment? Some suggest that courtly love, with all its flowery language and distance, was actually a coping mechanism for this lack of direct contact. It was safer to love an ideal from afar than to deal with the logistical nightmare of sending a direct message. The result is a society where secrets are just things you haven't shouted loud enough yet. If you wanted to keep something truly private, you kept it in your head. The moment it left your lips, it belonged to the community. So as you stand there watching the ink dry, a shiny black liquid, turning matte as it sinks into the skin of a dead sheep, you realize that love, in this time, is a collaborative effort. It's a group project. You pay the scribe, you nod your thanks, and you walk back out into the muddy street. You hope the letter gets there. You hope the translation holds. You hope that somewhere, 3 villages away, someone listens to a stranger reading a formal declaration of virtuous presence and understands that what you really meant was, "I wish you were here to hold my hand in the dark." But for now, the only hand you hold is the rough handle of your door as you push it open. stepping back into the noise and the collective breathing of your crowded home. You are sitting at a rough wooden table, spooning pottage into your mouth. It's a bland, beige sludge made of peas and oats, but it's warm, which is the most important flavor profile available to you. Without thinking, you switch your spoon to your left hand to wipe a crumb from your beard. Suddenly, a sharp slap lands on your wrist. It's your grandmother. She looks at you with genuine fear in her eyes, as if you've just tried to summon a demon with your cutlery. "Use the right one," she hisses, crossing herself quickly. Welcome to the sinister world of the left hand. In our modern era, being left-handed is a mild inconvenience involving scissors and smudge-prone ink. It's a quirk. Maybe it means you're creative. In the Middle Ages, however, it is a spiritual defect. It is a sign that something in your soul is wired backwards. The Latin word for left is sinister. The Latin word for right is dexter. From these roots, we get dexterous, skillful, capable, good. And from the other, we get sinister, evil, threatening, malicious. The language itself has rigged the game against you. To be left-handed is, quite literally, to be sinister. You see, the medieval world is obsessed with order and hierarchy. God is on the right. The saved sit at the right hand of the Father. The devil lurks on the left. The left side is the weak side, the female side, the dark side. It is the direction from which bad weather and bad luck arrive. If you are a child showing a preference for your left hand, your parents don't buy you special ergonomic scissors. They tie your left hand behind your back. They beat the wrongness out of you. It is a corrective therapy born of deep superstition. They are terrified that if you use your left hand, you are signaling to the powers of darkness that you are open for business. Imagine the psychological toll of this. You are constantly policing your own body. Every time you reach for an apple, a tool, or a door handle, you have to override your natural instinct. You have to be right to be good. A left-handed knight is viewed with deep suspicion on the tournament field, not just because his angles are weird and hard to block, but because there is a lingering doubt about who he is truly fighting for. Is his skill natural or is it unnatural? This anxiety about what is seen and unseen bleeds into another aspect of your daily life, your own reflection. Quick question: what do you look like? You pause. In the modern world, you check your reflection probably 10 times a day. You see yourself in the bathroom mirror, the rear view mirror, shop windows, the black screen of your phone. You have a high definition 4K mental image of your own face. You know your pores. You know exactly how your hair looks from the side. But here, you have no idea. Mirrors, as we know them, glass coated with silver or aluminum that gives a perfect reflection, do not exist for you. They are rare, expensive items imported from Venice, owned only by the ultra-rich, and even those are often small and convex, distorting the image like a funhouse mirror. For you, the ordinary peasant, your reflection is a rumor. You catch glimpses of yourself in a bucket of still water, but the image is dark, rippling, and fleeting. You might see a hazy shape in a polished piece of bronze or pewter, but it's like looking at yourself through a thick gray fog. You know you have a nose, you know you have eyes, but the details, the nuances of your own expression, they are a mystery to you. This creates a fascinating psychological condition. You exist primarily through the eyes of others. You don't groom yourself for your own satisfaction because you can't see the result. You don't fix your hair because you like it that way. You can't see it that way. You rely entirely on your community to tell you who you are. If the village says you are handsome, you believe them. If they say you look tired, you feel tired. Your identity is externalized. You are a character in a play who never sees the costume they are wearing. You are effectively walking around wearing a mask of your own face, a mask that only other people get to enjoy or criticize. This lack of self-reflection extends to hygiene. You can't see the dirt on your own cheek. You can't check if there's spinach in your teeth. You rely on the social contract. You hope that your neighbor will tell you. But remember, your neighbor is also tired, hungry, and possibly annoyed about the debt you owe him. So maybe he lets you walk around with a smudge of soot on your forehead all day. Historians still argue whether this lack of mirrors contributed to a less egocentric worldview. Without the constant feedback loop of seeing oneself, were medieval people less self-conscious? Or were they more anxious, constantly wondering how they were being perceived by the audience of the village? It also reinforces the power of the church. The priest tells you that the body is just a vessel, a temporary shell of dust and ash, and frankly, based on the blurry gray blob you see in the water trough, you're inclined to agree. You don't see a high-definition individual. You see a rough shape, a silhouette against the sky. So, you go through your day feeling your way through the world. You trust your right hand because you have to. You trust your neighbor's description of your face because you have no other choice. You're a ghost in your own machine, navigating a world of blurry reflections and forbidden left turns. And as you lay down to sleep, wrapping yourself in your rough wool blanket, you might unconsciously scratch your nose with your left hand in the dark. It feels good, it feels natural, but you quickly pull it back, tucking it under your body, just in case the devil is watching from the corner of the room, waiting for a high five. You wake up before the sun, the world is gray and cold, the kind of cold that doesn't just sit on your skin but seems to inhabit your bones. You sit up, your breath pluming in the damp air of the cottage. The first thing you do isn't check the weather or stretch. The first thing you do is look for Dave. Dave is your shovel. In a world of mass production, where you can buy a shovel at a hardware store for the price of a decent lunch, objects are disposable. If your shovel breaks, you curse. Throw it in the trash and buy a new one. But here in the 13th century, a shovel is a legacy. It is a companion. Iron is expensive. Wood that has been shaped and hardened is valuable. A good tool is the difference between eating and starving. You don't just have a shovel, you have a relationship with it. You know its weight, the specific grain of the handle where your thumb rests, the way the metal edge is chipped from that time you hit a rock in the lower field 3 years ago. Because you have so few possessions, the ones you do have take on a personality. You name them. It's not just a quirk, it's a way of honoring the object's role in your survival. You might have Old Bess, the heavy iron pot that has cooked every meal you've eaten since childhood. You might have the biter, an axe that seems to have a thirst for your shins if you aren't careful. This animism, treating inanimate objects as if they have souls, is a natural coping mechanism. When you are alone in a field for 12 hours a day, turning the earth, the shovel is your only company. You talk to it. "Come on, Dave, just one more row," you mutter, and in your exhaustion, you could swear Dave listens. He feels lighter when the work is going well, heavier when the rain starts. You treat these objects with a reverence that borders on religious. You clean them, you repair them, you oil them. A broken handle is a tragedy. A lost tool is a catastrophe. It's like losing a limb. But if tools are your friends, shoes are your gods. Let's talk about your feet. You are walking on them all day, every day. You don't have a car, you don't have a bike. You are a pedestrian in the most extreme sense. And the ground is hostile. It is rocky, muddy, frozen, or covered in animal waste. Shoes are not fashion. They are survival equipment. Most people you know own exactly one pair of shoes. They are made of leather, perhaps with a wooden sole if you're fancy, but usually just layers of leather stitched together. They are not waterproof. They do not have arch support. They are simply a barrier between your soft flesh and the hard world. You wear them until they fall apart, and then you repair them. You stitch patches over holes. You stuff them with straw in the winter for insulation, a trick that works surprisingly well until the straw gets wet, at which point you are walking around with freezing cold compost around your toes. The fear of shoe failure is constant. Imagine it is January. The ground is frozen hard as iron. If your shoe splits, you are in immediate danger. Frostbite in the Middle Ages isn't just painful, it's often a death sentence. Infection sets in, gangrene follows, and since antibiotics are centuries away, you die. All because of a broken shoelace or a worn out sole. This is why shoemakers, cobblers, are such vital figures in the village. They are the mechanics of the human engine. When you take your shoes to be fixed, you watch the process like a hawk. You can't afford a bad repair job. There is a specific visceral anxiety associated with the sensation of a wet sock, or rather a wet foot wrap, since socks as we know them are rare. When you feel that damp cold seeping in, your heart rate spikes. It's the check engine light of your body turning on. You see people walking barefoot in the summers to save their shoes. They carry them over their shoulders like precious cargo. They would rather cut their feet on stones than wear down the leather on a frivolous trip to the neighbor's house. The calluses on a medieval peasant's feet are legendary. Thick, horn-like layers of skin that act as a natural sole. But even those aren't enough for winter. Historians still argue about the specifics of medieval footwear construction, debating how common turn shoes were versus more primitive wrappings among the poorest serfs. But the archaeological record is clear on one thing. Shoes were repaired again and again and again. We find leather soles that are more patched than original material. They tell a story of desperate preservation. So, you sit there in the morning gloom, pulling on your stiff, cracked leather shoes. You stuff a fresh handful of dry straw around your ankles. You lace them up with a reverence usually reserved for prayer. You grab Dave the shovel from his corner. Morning, Dave, you whisper. You step out into the cold. Your feet are numb within minutes, but they are dry. And as long as they stay dry, you have a fighting chance. You look down at your feet as you walk, watching the leather flex and crease. They are ugly, misshapen, and smell of old grease. But they are the only things keeping you connected to the earth without being consumed by it. They are the tires on your vehicle of life, and you will drive them until the wheels literally fall off. The sun has fully risen now, burning off the morning mist, but the silence of the dawn lingers in a way that makes your skin crawl. You're working in the field, and for a moment, the wind dies down. The birds stop singing. The rhythmic thud crunch of Dave the shovel hitting the earth stops because you've paused to wipe sweat from your brow. Absolute silence. In the modern world, silence is a luxury. We pay for noise-canceling headphones. We go on silent retreats to escape the hum of traffic, the buzz of notifications, the constant auditory clutter of the 21st century. We crave the quiet. But here, silence is the sound of death. In your world, a silent village is a dead village. It means the plague has come. It means the soldiers have passed through. It means the wolves are hunting. Silence is the auditory signature of the void. It is the absence of life. You crave noise. You need noise. You need the sound of the blacksmith's hammer ringing against the anvil. That clang, clang, clang is the heartbeat of the economy. You need the sound of pigs squealing, of chickens clucking, of neighbors arguing about whose goat ate whose turnips. These are the sounds of safety. They mean that the machinery of life is still turning. This fear of silence runs deep. It's why you sleep in a pile. Privacy in sleep is another modern invention. You don't have your own room. You don't even have your own bed, usually. The entire family sleeps in one large bed, or on a pile of straw and skins in the center of the room. And it's not just the humans. If it's cold, the animals come inside too. You sleep surrounded by the breathing of your parents, your children, your siblings, maybe a dog, and potentially a very gassy cow. It sounds like a nightmare to a modern insomniac, but to you, it's a lullaby. The sound of your grandfather snoring is proof that he's still alive. The shifting of the cow is proof that your wealth hasn't been stolen. When you wake up in the middle of the night and hear the cacophony of snores, wheezes, and rustles, you feel safe. It's when you wake up to total silence that the panic sets in. Silence means something is wrong. Silence means the fire has gone out. Silence means the spirits are watching. And speaking of spirits, let's talk about the other great fear that keeps you up at night. The fear of being forgotten. You are illiterate. You have no Instagram archive. You have no diary. You have no birth certificate stored in a cloud server. Your entire existence is recorded only in the wet, biological hard drives of other people's memories. If they die, or if they forget, you cease to exist. This creates a desperate, clawing need to leave a mark. It's why you name your children after your grandparents. It's not just tradition, it's a resurrection spell. By naming your son John after his grandfather, you are keeping the original John alive. You are recycling the name to ensure it stays in the rotation of spoken words. A name spoken is a soul remembered. It's why the wealthy, those lucky few with stone instead of wood, pay fortunes to have their names carved into church walls. Pray for the soul of Thomas, the inscription says. It's a plea for immortality. They are hacking the system, trying to ensure that strangers will speak their names long after their bones have turned to dust. But you don't have stone. You have wood that rots and mud that washes away. So your strategies are more desperate. You carve your initials into trees knowing the bark will eventually swallow them. You tell stories about your ancestors over the fire, repeating them word for word like a sacred text, ensuring the next generation memorizes them. Your great-grandfather once lifted a cart by himself, you say, even if he probably didn't. The truth matters less than the memory. This is why excommunication from the church is so terrifying. It's not just about hell, it's about social erasure. To be cut off is to be unnamed. To be shunned is to be turned into a ghost while you are still breathing. Historians still argue about the cult of memory in the Middle Ages, debating how much of religious practice was actually just an elaborate system of anxiety management regarding oblivion. The chantries, chapels where priests were paid solely to sing for the souls of the dead, were essentially trust funds for the ego. Please, the dead seem to say, don't stop talking about me. You feel this anxiety in your chest. You look at the field you are plowing. Next year the furrows will be gone. The crop will be eaten. The mud will be smooth again. Your labor leaves no permanent scar on the earth. So you make noise. You sing while you work. You shout greetings to your neighbors. You participate in the loud, raucous festivals of the village. You fill the silence with as much life as you can muster because you know that eventually the great silence is coming for everyone. You look over at the village churchyard. There are no headstones for people like you, just mounds of earth that slowly flatten over time. Your great-grandmother is in there somewhere, but you aren't sure exactly where. The grass has claimed her. The silence has claimed her. You grip Dave the shovel tighter. You strike the earth with a little more force than necessary. Thud. The sound is dull, but it is real. Thud. I am here. Thud. I am alive. Thud. Remember me. You are sitting in the church, trying to pay attention to the Latin murmurs drifting from the altar, but your attention is snagged by a woman in the pew ahead of you. Her headscarf has slipped slightly, revealing a few inches of loose hair. To a modern observer, this is nothing. Hair is hair. It's keratin. It grows, you cut it, you dye it, you complain about split ends. But here, in the medieval mindset, that loose hair is a loaded gun. You stare at it with a mixture of fascination and alarm. You see, hair is not just a biological feature, it is a spiritual antenna. For women, loose hair is associated with wildness, with magic, and with dangerous sexuality. It is the visual signal of a woman who is unbound in every sense of the word. A married woman walking around with her hair down is practically screaming, I am open to chaos. This is why the wimple and the veil are non-negotiable. They are containment fields. They keep the chaos under wraps. When you see depictions of witches or demons in manuscripts, They almost always have wild, flowing hair. It's the visual shorthand for evil this way comes. So, you watch the woman quickly tuck the stray lock back under her linen coif. Order is restored. The spiritual breach is sealed. You breathe a sigh of relief. But then, disaster strikes. The man next to you takes a sharp intake of breath. His eyes widen. His nose twitches. He is going to sneeze. In the 21st century, a sneeze is a biological reflex. It means you inhaled some dust, or you have allergies, or you're getting a cold. You say, "Excuse me," grab a tissue, and move on. In the Middle Ages, a sneeze is a spiritual emergency. The prevailing theory, backed by the finest minds of the time, is that a sneeze is a moment of profound vulnerability. It is a violent expulsion of air from the body, and in that split second, your soul is momentarily dislodged. It's like opening the front door of your house during a hurricane. For a brief moment, the inside is exposed to the outside. There are two distinct fears here. Fear 1, your soul might accidentally fly out. It sounds ridiculous now, but people genuinely worry that a particularly violent sneeze could eject their spirit like a pilot from a crashing plane, leaving their body an empty husk. Fear 2, and this is the more common one. In that moment of expulsion, a demon could fly in. Demons in the medieval imagination are microscopic, opportunistic pests. They are everywhere, hovering in the air like gnats, waiting for an opening. A sneeze creates a vacuum, a momentary gap in your spiritual armor. A demon sees that open mouth and thinks, free real estate. So, as the man next to you explodes with a loud achoo, the reaction of the congregation is instantaneous and military in its precision. "God bless you," 3 people whisper in unison. This isn't politeness. This is a counterspell. This is a spiritual shield deployed in real time. By invoking the name of God immediately after the sneeze, you are slamming the door shut before a demon can slip through. You are stuffing the soul back into the body and sealing the cracks with holy silicone. It is a frantic, knee-jerk reaction. If you don't say it and that man later falls ill or starts acting strange, it's on you. You left the door open. This hypersensitivity to the invisible world governs every aspect of your behavior. You are walking through a minefield of superstitions. Yawning? Cover your mouth immediately. Same principle. An open mouth is a demon highway. You don't cover your mouth to be polite. You cover it to install a physical barrier against possession. Whistling? Absolutely not. Especially at night. Whistling calls the spirits. It's like ringing a dinner bell for ghosts. Sailors are particularly terrified of this. They believe whistling can summon a storm. If you whistle in a mine, the miners might beat you up. It's reckless endangerment. Even the way you sleep is dictated by these fears. You never sleep with your feet pointing toward the door. That's how corpses are carried out. Sleeping that way is inviting the reaper to drag you out by your ankles. You curl up. You minimize your footprint, you hide. Historians and anthropologists still debate the origins of the "God bless you" reflex. Some trace it back to the plague of Justinian or the later Black Death, where sneezing was a first symptom of the end. In that context, "God bless you" was less of a shield and more of a final rite, a rest in peace spoken to someone who was still standing up. But for you, in this moment, it's just everyday safety protocol. The man wipes his nose on his sleeve. He looks shaken, but thanks to the quick reflexes of his neighbors, he remains unpossessed. He nods his thanks. You nod back. Crisis averted. You return your attention to the priest, but you keep a wary eye on the woman's hair and the twitching nose of the altar boy. You are a spiritual security guard, constantly scanning for breaches. The air is thick with invisible threats, and your only weapons are linen headscarves and quick muttered blessings. You pull your own cloak tighter around your neck. You feel a tickle in your throat. You suppress it with sheer willpower. You are not going to be the one who lets the demons in today. You swallow hard, burying the cough deep in your chest. It's uncomfortable, but it's better than leaving the door open. You are 7 years old. In the modern world, this is the age of Minecraft. Missing front teeth and learning how to tie your shoes, it is a time of protected innocence. You are a kid, a distinct biological category that requires special food, special entertainment, and constant supervision to ensure you don't accidentally eat a battery. But here, you are just a short adult. The concept of childhood as a protected, playful era of life is a modern invention. In the medieval village, you are simply a small person who eats food and therefore must justify that calorie consumption. As soon as your motor skills are developed enough to hold a stick, you have a job. You are a goose herd. You stand in a field for 10 hours a day, staring at a flock of aggressive, hissing birds, ensuring they don't wander into the woods. You are 5 years old, or maybe you are a rock picker, tasked with walking behind the plow and removing stones from the furrows. Your back aches, your hands are calloused. You don't have play dates, you have shifts. There is no teenage rebellion because there are no teenagers. You go from child to married with the responsibilities in the blink of an eye. The moment you hit puberty, you are technically ready to run a household. The angsty teen phase is a luxury you cannot afford because you are too busy trying to keep the fire lit and the wolf from the door. This acceleration of life is driven by a brutal statistic: mortality. Death is everywhere. It is in the water, in the cut on your finger, in the bad harvest. Parents love their children deeply and fiercely. Kyung. But historians still argue whether the high infant mortality rate created a psychological defensive distancing. Did medieval parents hold back a piece of their heart until the child survived the perilous first 5 years? Or is that a modern cynical projection onto a grieving past? Regardless, if you survive to adulthood, you are a statistical anomaly. You have beaten the odds. You are a survivor. And now you have to sign your name. But wait, you can't write. We established this. You are illiterate. But you are also a functioning member of society. You buy land. You sell grain. You witness marriages. You need to sign documents. So, how do you authenticate your identity in a world without signatures? You draw a picture. The medieval signature is often a doodle. If you are a cooper, a barrel maker, you might draw a crude little barrel. If you are a smith, you draw a hammer. If you have no trade, you might draw a cross, the mark of God, as a witness to your truth. Some people use their teeth. In a time before standardized biometrics, a tooth impression on the wax seal of a document is a valid form of ID. You literally bite the contract. It's visceral. It's DNA evidence before we knew what DNA was. Or you use your thumb. You press your dirty, callous thumb into the soft red wax. The ridges of your skin, the unique swirl of your print are left there, frozen in time. When we look at medieval documents today, we sometimes see these prints, tiny, ghost-like touches from a hand that turned to dust 800 years ago. It is a hauntingly personal way to say, I was here. I agree to this. But if establishing your presence in life is tricky, establishing your absence in death is even harder. Let's talk about your greatest fear. It's not the dragon. It's not the king. It's the doctor. Medieval medicine is, to put it politely, a guessing game played with knives and leeches. The criteria for dead are vague. There are no EKG machines. There are no brain scans. The local doctor, who is likely also the local barber and possibly the butcher, holds a mirror or a feather to your mouth. If it doesn't move, congratulations. You are deceased. But people make mistakes. Comas happen, seizures happen, deep unresponsive fainting spells happen. And in a world eager to get the body underground before it starts to smell Shah's spread plague, the turnaround time between last breath and burial is terrifyingly short. This leads to a pervasive, crawling horror, the fear of being buried alive. Stories circulate in the tavern, stories of graves opened years later to reveal scratch marks on the inside of the coffin lid, stories of bodies found turned over, their hands raised in a final, frozen desperation. They are the urban legends of your time, but they are rooted in a terrifying medical reality. So, society invents a failsafe, the wake. The wake is not just a party for the grieving relatives, it is a surveillance operation. The term is literal. You are watching to see if the dead person wakes. You lay the body out on the table in the main room, you light candles, and then you sit. You sit for days. You drink ale, lots of it, partly to toast the deceased, but mostly to numb the creeping dread of sitting next to a corpse in a dim room. You watch the chest. Did it move? Was that a breath or just the wind flickering the candle? You watch the face. Did the eyelid twitch? The atmosphere is a mix of grief and high-stakes tension. If Uncle Breathless suddenly sits up and asks for a beer, it is a miracle, but it is also a heart attack waiting to happen for everyone else in the room. There are even tests, pricking the toe with a needle, shouting the person's name loudly in their ear, pouring hot wax on their skin. These are the medieval defibrillators. You are trying to annoy the soul back into the body. This fear persists for centuries. It's why, in later centuries, wealthy eccentrics will design safety coffins with bells and air tubes. But for you, in the simple medieval village, your safety coffin is your family. You rely on them to not bury you until they are sure. You rely on them to sit up with you through the long, silent nights, staring at your stillness, waiting for a sign of life. It is a final act of love, to watch, to wait, to ensure that when you go into the dark, you are truly ready to stay there. And usually you are. Usually the chest doesn't move, the toe doesn't twitch, the wake ends, the coffin is nailed shut, or the shroud is tied, and you are lowered into the earth. But as the dirt hits the wood, thud, 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 there is always that tiny lingering fraction of a doubt in the minds of the mourners. A silent question that hangs in the cold graveyard air. Did we wait long enough? You turn away from the grave, rubbing your hands together against the chill. You head back to the village, to the noise, to the fire. You are alive. You can feel the bite of the wind on your face. You can feel the hunger in your belly. You are not ready for the wake yet. You walk past the children herding the geese. They look cold. They look tired. They look like little adults waiting for their turn to sign the contract with a thumbprint. You nod to them. They don't nod back. They are watching the geese. Life goes on. The wheel turns. And you just hope that when your turn comes to stop, someone loves you enough to watch you for a few days, just in case you decide to come back. We are leaving the muddy fields and the goose-herding children behind now. We are jumping forward a few centuries, trading the rough wool of the medieval peasant for the stiff, heavy brocade of the 16th century English court. You are no longer fighting for survival against the cold. You are fighting for survival against the sun. Welcome to the Tudor era, where the most dangerous thing you can do for your social standing is to look healthy. In the modern world, a tan is a status symbol. It says, I have leisure time. I have been to the Maldives. I have disposable income and a lack of office fluorescent lighting in my life. We bake ourselves in UV beds. We slather ourselves in bronze-tinted lotions. We chase the sun-kissed glow. In Tudor England, a tan is a social death sentence. If you are a woman of quality, and for the purpose of this section, you are, brown skin means one thing. You work. It means you have been outside. It means you are indistinguishable from the milkmaid or the turnip picker. To be tanned is to be poor. To be tanned is to be common. And the absolute worst thing you can be in this society is common. So, your entire existence is a strategic retreat from daylight. You live your life in a perpetual twilight. The curtains in your manor are drawn. When you step outside, you are armored. you wear a mask, literally a velvet mask that covers your entire face, held in place by a button you grip between your teeth. Or you wear a shade, a massive structured hood that creates a portable cave around your head. You don't walk in the sun, you scurry between shadows like a terrified nocturnal animal. Your goal is not just fair, your goal is translucent. You want to look as if you have never seen the sun, never felt a breeze, and possibly never eaten a solid meal. The ideal beauty standard is a woman who looks like she is made of fine, white porcelain that might shatter if someone speaks too loudly. This creates a beauty culture that is deeply, weirdly obsessive about transparency. You want your skin to be so pale that it looks like skimmed milk, but it's not enough to be white, you need to be thinned. You want people to see the blue veins pulsing beneath your skin. In fact, if your skin is naturally a bit too thick or healthy to show your veins, you might take a fine brush and paint blue lines on your chest and temples. You literally draw your own circulatory system on the outside to prove how delicate you are. It is a performance of fragility. In a brutal, violent world where men are chopping each other's heads off and dying of sweating sickness, the ultimate flex for a woman is to look like she is barely tethered to the earthly plane. You are a ghost. You are an ethereal spirit who just happens to be wearing 40 pounds of velvet. Let's talk about that forehead. You stand in front of your polished metal mirror. Mirrors have improved slightly since the Middle Ages, but you still look a bit distorted. You look at your hairline, it's too low. A low hairline is considered animalistic. It's cluttered. It distracts from the pure, expansive moonscape of your face. So you pluck it. You don't just pluck your eyebrows into thin, startled arches. You pluck your actual hairline. You recede your own hair by an inch or two, creating a vast, domed forehead. This exposes more pale skin. It makes you look like a brilliant alien baby. And it hurts. There are no numbing creams. There is just you, a pair of tweezers, and the grim determination to look like a boiled egg. This is the aesthetic of the high-status female. A giant, pale forehead, invisible eyebrows, and skin the color of printer paper. But achieving this look naturally is almost impossible. Humans are mammals. We have blood, we have pigment. We get flushed when we are hot or embarrassed. Your body wants to be pink and brown. You have to fight your own biology. This struggle transforms your daily routine into a medical procedure. You aren't just getting ready, you are preparing a facade. You wash your face not with water, water is suspect, but with wine or milk. You might use a glaze of egg white to give your face a shiny, polished look, like a glazed donut, so that you don't just look pale, you look hard and smooth. Historians and sociologists still argue about the deeper meaning of this pale aesthetic. Was it purely a class marker, a way to separate the aristocracy from the peasantry, or was it a reflection of the intense gender control of the era? By forcing women to avoid the sun, to stay indoors, to look weak and fragile, society was physically reinforcing the idea that women belonged inside, in the domestic sphere, hidden away. The beauty standard was a cage made of shade. It also creates a strange psychological disconnect. You are forbidden from engaging with the natural world. You can't go for a vigorous walk, you might get flushed, vulgar. You can't garden, you might get freckles, disastrous. You are an indoor plant. You wilt in the window seat, sewing endless tapestries, your pale hands moving like white spiders over the fabric. And the silence of this life is different from the silence of the peasant. It's a stifled silence. You are corseted. Your torso is encased in a pair of bodies, stays, stiffened with whalebone or wood. You can't take a deep breath even if you wanted to. Your movement is restricted, your breathing is shallow, and your face is a frozen mask of white paste. You are a statue in your own home. Men write sonnets about this. They compare you to lilies, to snow, to pearls. They praise your snowy bosom and your marble brow. They love the fact that you look like you are made of expensive, non-living materials. They don't compare you to a healthy horse or a vibrant tree. They compare you to rocks and frozen water. You read these poems and you feel a strange sense of accomplishment. You have successfully erased your humanity. You have erased the blood beneath your skin, the hair on your head, the color in your cheeks. You have become an object, a beautiful, pale, expensive object. But there is a hunger in you. Sometimes you look out the window at the garden. You see a gardener working in the dirt. His face is brown and lined. He looks like a dried apple. He is ugly by your standards, but he is breathing. He is feeling the sun on his neck. He's alive in a way you are not allowed to be. You quickly turn away from the window. The sun is touching the glass. It's too risky. You pull the heavy velvet curtain shut, plunging the room back into the protective gloom. You sit back down at your vanity. You pick up the tweezers. You see a single hair daring to grow on your high, perfect forehead. You pluck it out. You wince just a little, and then you compose your face back into the perfect frozen mask of the Tudor ideal. You are pale. You are interesting. You are safe. You are sitting at your vanity table, staring into a silver hand mirror. The light in the room is dim, but you can see the blemishes. A few red spots on your chin. A patch of uneven pigmentation on your cheek. To you, these are not just skin issues. They are moral failings. They are cracks in the porcelain. You need to fix them. You need the heavy artillery. You need the Venetian ceruse. You open a small decorative pot. Inside is a thick white paste. It smells faintly of vinegar, a sharp acidic tang that cuts through the stale air of the bedroom. This is the magic eraser of the 16th century. It covers everything. It smooths out the pock scars, hides the freckles, and gives you that dead white, ghostly pallor that is the height of fashion. You dip your fingers, or perhaps a soft piece of leather, into the pot and begin to smear it onto your face. It feels heavy. It feels cold. As it dries, it tightens, pulling your skin taut. It forms a literal mask, a second skin that doesn't move when you smile. But here is the catch, the quirky tidbit that makes this routine truly horrifying to modern sensibilities. Venetian ceruse is made of white lead and vinegar. You are effectively painting your face with poison. Lead is a neurotoxin. It absorbs through the skin. It accumulates in the body. Slowly, over months and years of daily application, it begins to eat you from the inside out. First, it attacks the skin itself. The very thing you are trying to beautify begins to rot. Your skin turns gray and shriveled. It dries out. It develops ugly, weeping sores. So, what do? You apply more ceruse. It is a vicious, tragic cycle. The makeup causes the damage, which requires thicker layers of makeup to hide. You are caught in a feedback loop of toxicity. You are troweling on lead to hide the effects of lead. Then come the internal symptoms. Your hair starts to fall out. Your gums recede. Your teeth turn gray and loosen. You get horrific headaches, tremors, and mood swings. You feel constantly nauseous, but you don't stop. You can't stop, because the alternative, revealing your ruined, natural face to the court, is unthinkable. In this society, ugliness is often equated with sin. If you have bad skin, it's not just biology. It's a sign that your soul is disordered. God makes good people beautiful. Therefore, if you look like a rotting corpse, you must be wicked. So, you choose the poison. You choose the slow, painful suicide of beauty, and it's not just the white foundation. You need color. You need a flush of youth on your cheeks to contrast with the deathly white. So you reach for the rouge. The rouge is often made from vermilion. Vermilion is a brilliant, beautiful red pigment derived from cinnabar. And cinnabar is mercury sulfide. Excellent. You have coated your face in lead, and now you are highlighting your cheekbones with mercury. The mercury adds its own special spice to the cocktail. It causes your skin to peel away in layers. It induces madness. It makes you drool uncontrollably. It creates a tremor known as Hatter's shakes. You are literally dissolving your own face. There are contemporary accounts, sermons from priests, pamphlets from moralists that rail against this practice. They call it face painting and equate it with lying to God. They warn women that they are poisoning themselves. But the pressure to conform is stronger than the fear of death. It's like the modern debate about plastic surgery or dangerous diet pills, but dialed up to 11. You know it's bad for you. You can feel the burning. You can taste the metallic tang in your mouth. But when you walk into the great hall and the candlelight catches your smooth, white alabaster face and the men bow and the other women look at you with envy, it feels worth it. You are a masterpiece of chemistry. You are a walking toxic waste dump. But you are beautiful. And let's not forget the eyes. You want them to sparkle. You want them to look wide and dilated like a doe caught in headlights. So you might use drops made from the belladonna plant. Belladonna. Beautiful lady, also known as deadly nightshade. It dilates your pupils, yes. It gives you that dreamy, romantic stare. It also causes blurred vision, rapid heartbeat, and hallucinations. You are stumbling through the court, half blind, your heart hammering against your ribs, your brain firing random signals, your skin absorbing lead, your cheeks burning with mercury. You are a physiological wreck, but you look stunning. Historians still argue about the extent of this poisoning. Was it widespread among all classes or just the elite? Did women truly not understand the link between the makeup and the sickness, or did they simply accept it as the cost of doing business? Some evidence suggests they knew. They called it the price of beauty. There is a grim solidarity in this. You look at the other women in the court. You see the same thick white mask on them. You see the same receding hairlines. You see the way their hands tremble slightly when they hold their wine glasses. You know they are suffering too. You are a sorority of the poisoned. You finish applying the ceruse. You look in the mirror. The red spots are gone. The gray skin is hidden. A perfect, white, lifeless doll stares back at you. You smile. The mask cracks slightly at the corners of your mouth, so you stop smiling. You must be still. You must be perfect. You pick up your fan, not just a fashion accessory, but a tool to hide your rotting teeth when you laugh. You are ready to face the world. You are dying for this look, quite literally. But tonight at the banquet, you will shine. The music at the banquet is loud, lutes, viols, and drums creating a wall of sound that vibrates in your chest. But all eyes are not on the musicians. They are glued to the head of the room, to the woman sitting under the canopy of state, the Queen. Elizabeth III. She is the ultimate example of the mask we just talked about. She is the sun around which this entire toxic solar system revolves. But looking at her, you aren't seeing a person. You are seeing an icon, a brand, a political statement painted in lead and vermilion. She is an old woman now. Her hair, what's left of it, is gray. Her skin is pockmarked from a bout of smallpox that nearly killed her decades ago. Her teeth are black and rotting, a casualty of her legendary addiction to sugar. She brushes them with honey, believing it cleans them, which is a tragic dental irony. But you don't see any of that. You see a vision of eternal youth. She wears a massive, fiery red wig, curled tight and adorned with pearls. Her face is a smooth, impenetrable mask of white ceruse, layered so thick it looks like enamel. Her lips are a painted slash of red. She is stiff, encased in a dress that is more architecture than clothing, a fortress of brocade, jewels, and whalebone that expands her physical presence until she takes up as much space as 3 men. She has refused to age, or rather, she has refused to let you see her age. This isn't just vanity. This is politics. Elizabeth is the Virgin Queen. Her power is tied to her desirability, her availability, even if theoretical, and her timelessness. If she looks old, she looks weak. If she looks weak, the sharks, Catholic Spain, rebellious nobles, ambitious courtiers start to circle. So, she uses beauty as a weapon of state. She creates the mask of youth. In her later years, she forbids any realistic portraits. Artists are given a template, a face without wrinkles, without shadows, without age. She effectively photoshops herself in real time. She demands to be painted as she was at 20, even when she is 60. It is a masterful piece of propaganda. She is telling the world, I am not a mortal woman who decays, I am England, and England does not get wrinkles. But the effort required to maintain this illusion is staggering. It takes hours every morning to construct the queen. The wigs, the makeup, the padding, the ruffs that hide the aging neck. It is a grueling process of assembly. She is building a monument to herself every single day. And you, watching her, understand the terrifying subtext of this performance. Female beauty in this era is not about self-expression. It is about control. Specifically, male control. A woman's beauty is a currency, but she doesn't get to spend it. Her father spends it. Her husband spends it. A beautiful daughter is a bargaining chip to secure an alliance, a title, or a fortune. She is fair, they say, meaning she is valuable, but it's a double-edged sword. If a woman is too beautiful, she is dangerous. She is a temptation. She is suspected of using her looks to manipulate men, to lead them into sin. Beauty is viewed with a mix of desire and deep puritanical suspicion. And if she is ugly, if she is scarred or deformed or simply plain, then she is useless. Or worse, she is morally suspect. The medieval equation of outer beauty, Hangsik inner goodness, is still strong. A woman with a crooked face is assumed to have a crooked soul. So, women are trapped in a narrow corridor of acceptable existence. You must be beautiful enough to be valuable, but modest enough to be safe. You must paint your face to hide your flaws, but not so much that you look like a harlot. You must be a virtuous beauty. It is an exhausting tightrope walk. You are constantly performing for an audience of men who are both your judges and your jailers. Elizabeth, interestingly, has hacked this system. She has taken the male gaze and weaponized it. She uses her artificial beauty to keep her courtiers off balance. She flirts with them, dangles the possibility of marriage, plays them off against each other. She uses her desirability as a carrot to lead the donkey. But even she is trapped by it. She cannot relax. She cannot take off the wig in public. She cannot let the mask slip. She has to be the icon until the moment she dies. There is a story. Historians debate its accuracy, but it feels true that in her final days, Elizabeth refused to look in a mirror. She had them all covered or removed. She couldn't bear to see the reality beneath the construction. She wanted to remember herself as the world saw her, the eternal, white-faced Gloriana. You watch her sip her wine, watered down, of course. She doesn't smile, probably to hide the black teeth. She sits rigid, her eyes scanning the room. She is the most powerful woman in the world, yet she is a prisoner of her own face. You touch your own cheek, feeling the stiff, dry crust of the lead makeup. You feel a strange kinship with her. You are both hiding. You are both playing a game where the rules are rigged and the equipment is poisonous. But for now, the music plays. The queen nods. A small, stiff movement. The court bows. The illusion holds for another night. England is safe. The queen is young, and you are beautiful, even if it's killing you. Take a deep breath. Can you feel that? The air has changed. We are leaving the stale, lead-filled boudoir of Tudor England. We are stepping away from the heavy velvet curtains and the fear of the sun. We are traveling back 2,000 years, and south to a place where the sun is not an enemy, but a god. You are standing on a narrow neck of land, buffeted by a warm, salty wind. To your left, you see the glittering dark blue of the Saronic Gulf. To your right, just a few miles away, is the Corinthian Gulf. You are on the isthmus, This is the waist of Greece. It is the tiny pinched nerve of rock that connects the Peloponnesian Peninsula to the mainland. It is one of the most strategic pieces of real estate in the ancient world. If Greece were an hourglass, you are standing in the middle of the glass neck, watching the sand, travelers, armies, merchants squeeze through. And because this is a place where the land fights the sea and where the earth seems to tremble with the tension of two massive bodies of water pushing against it, it belongs to one god, Poseidon, the earth shaker, the lord of horses, the god of the sea. We are here for the Isthmian Games. Now, you probably know the Olympics. The Olympics are the rock stars of ancient history. They get all the press, the movies, and the modern revival. They are dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods, and they are held in Olympia, a lush, somewhat isolated valley. The Olympics are prestigious, sacred, and a bit snobby. The Isthmian Games are different. They are the gritty, accessible, working class cousin of the Olympics. While the Olympics happen every 4 years, a rhythm that requires patience, the Isthmian Games happen every 2 years. They are faster, more frequent, and more urgent. They are held in the spring just as the sailing season opens, marking the moment when the Mediterranean wakes up from its winter slumber. But the biggest difference is the location. Olympia is a destination. You have to go there. The Isthmus? You are probably passing through anyway. This location transforms the vibe entirely. You aren't just surrounded by pilgrims and athletes, you are surrounded by the flow of international traffic. The sanctuary of Poseidon sits right next to one of the greatest engineering marvels of the ancient world, the Diolkos. The Diolkos is a paved limestone trackway that runs across the isthmus. It is a ship railway. You see, sailing all the way around the bottom of the Peloponnese is dangerous. The winds at Cape Malea are treacherous. They eat ships for breakfast. So, clever captains prefer to take a shortcut. They pull their ships out of the water at Corinth, put them on massive wheeled wagons, and drag them 6 kilometers across the land to the other sea. Imagine the sound. The groaning of timber, the screech of axles, the shouting of ox drivers, the smell of animal grease and sweat. This is the background noise of the Isthmian Games. While athletes are preparing to run, ships are literally driving past them on the land. It is a surreal juxtaposition of sport and heavy industry. Because of this, the crowd here is more diverse than anywhere else. It's a transit hub. It's the ancient equivalent of an airport terminal mixed with a stadium. You have sailors from Egypt, grain merchants from the Black Sea, mercenaries looking for work, and spies listening for gossip. It is cosmopolitan, loud, and smells intensely of brine and pine trees. Pine trees are important here. In the Olympics, the winner gets a wreath of olive leaves. It's symbolic, dignified. Here at the Isthmian Games, the prize for winning an event, for being the absolute best in the world at your sport, is celery. Wild celery. Withered, dry celery. Historians still argue about the botanical history of the Victory Crown. At some points in history, it was celery, parsley in some translations. At other times, it was a wreath of pine branches. Then it switched back to celery, then back to pine. It's a scholarly debate that gets heated in very specific academic circles. But the point is, the prize is perishable. It dies within days. This is a feature, not a bug. It emphasizes the fleeting nature of glory. You win, you get a salad garnish that wilts before you get home, and you realize that fame is temporary. It fits the mood of Poseidon. The sea gives and the sea takes away. The sanctuary itself is impressive. There is a massive Doric temple to Poseidon, painted in bright primary colors, reds and blues that we often forget ancient buildings wore. Inside stands a colossal statue of the god, likely holding a trident and a dolphin, looking down at the chaos of the isthmus with a sense of turbulent ownership. But there is also a temple to Palemon, This is where the boring history gets a little dark. The myth of the game's origin isn't about a great victory or a happy occasion, it's about a funeral. Legend says the games were founded to honor a dead child, Melishers, later Palaemon, whose body washed ashore here on the back of a dolphin after his mother jumped into the sea with him to escape a mad husband. So, unlike the triumphant energy of the Olympics, the Isthmian Games have a thread of mourning woven into them. The judges wear black robes, not bright festive colors. The vibe is a mix of a funeral wake and a block party. It's a celebration of life in the most literal sense. We are playing games because we are not dead yet. You walk through the pine grove surrounding the temple. The ground is covered in soft, brown needles. The air is resinous and cool. You can hear the roar of the crowd from the stadium, a natural hollow in the hillside, but you can also hear the rhythmic crash of the waves on the shore below. This duality defines the experience. Earth and water, life and death, sport and commerce. You watch a group of sailors making an offering at the temple. They aren't here for the javelin toss. They are here to bribe Poseidon. They are about to cross the sea. They are buying insurance. They burn thighs of bulls, the smoke rising thick and greasy into the blue sky. Please, the smoke says, don't drown us. The Isthmian Games are also the only major Panhellenic festival where Athenians are given special treatment. They have proedria, front row seats. This is a political flex. Athens is a sea power. This is a sea festival. They want everyone to know they own the waves. But if you are from Elis, the region that runs the Olympics, you are banned. The rivalry is petty and centuries old. The Eleans boycott these games, claiming the air here is unhealthy, which is ancient code for we hate you. You find a spot on the grassy bank of the stadium. It's not built of stone like the later Roman arenas, it's just the earth shaped into a U. You sit on the ground. The grass prickles your legs. You are surrounded by thousands of people. But unlike the Olympics, where everyone is Greek and freeborn, here the crowd is a melting pot. You hear languages you don't recognize. You see fashion from the edges of the known world. You are sitting next to a man who smells of fermented fish sauce, a Roman delicacy, and another who smells of expensive Persian perfume. The wind picks up. It whips the tunics of the spectators. It messes up the hair of the judges. It is a constant reminder that you are on a bridge over the water. You look down at the track. The runners are lining up. They are naked, oiled, and glistening in the sun. They are shivering slightly, not from fear, but from the cool sea breeze. But before the race starts, you look back toward the Diolkos. You see the mast of a trireme moving slowly behind the trees, gliding across the land as it is dragged from one sea to the other. It looks like a magic trick, a ship sailing through the forest. This is the Isthmus. It's a place where the impossible happens on a regular basis, where ships walk on land, where celery is more valuable than gold, and where the god of the ocean presides over a foot race on the dirt. You lean back on your elbows. The sun is warm on your face. The rhythmic chanting of the crowd begins to lull you. It is a deep baritone drone. Poseidon, Poseidon. It's less of a cheer and more of a heartbeat. You close your eyes for a second, listening to the friction of the world, the wheels on the stone track, the waves on the sand, the runner's feet on the earth. It is a busy, noisy, chaotic place, but there is a strange, hypnotic rhythm to it, the rhythm of the tide, the rhythm of trade, the rhythm of the game. You are sitting on a stone bench and your senses are currently being assaulted from two very different directions. To your left, inside the stadium, two men are currently engaged in the pankration, a sport that can best be described as murder with a referee who is mostly just watching. You hear the wet slap of flesh on flesh, the grunt of exertion, and the roar of the crowd as one competitor gets the other in a headlock that looks anatomically impossible. But to your right, just a few hundred yards away, near the temple precinct, a man in a flowing purple robe is gently strumming a lyre and singing about the dew on a rose petal. Welcome to the cultural whiplash of the Isthmian Games. We tend to think of ancient games purely as athletic events. We imagine the Olympics as a series of foot races and discus throws. But the reality of the Greek festival circuit is much weirder. These weren't just sporting events, they were the ancient equivalent of a state fair, a music festival, and a high-end trade expo all rolled into one chaotic weekend. Let's talk about the shopping first. Because the Isthmus is such a vital trade route, the games act as a magnet for commerce. The area surrounding the stadium is a labyrinth of tents, stalls, and booths. It is a pop-up shop nightmare. You can buy anything here. You can buy Scythian leather boots. You can buy Egyptian linen. You can buy a slave, which is grim but a reality of the economy. You can buy a magic amulet to ward off fevers, sold by a man who looks like he currently has a fever. The noise of the market competes with the noise of the stadium. While you are trying to focus on the long jump, a vendor behind you is screaming about the freshness of his figs. It creates a distraction-heavy environment. You aren't just a spectator, you are a consumer. You are walking through the crowd, eating a skewer of roasted meat, dodging a cart full of pottery, and haggling over the price of a cloak. It is the birth of the gift shop economy. You can probably buy a small clay replica of the temple to take home to your grandmother. It's consumerism, ancient style. But the real cognitive dissonance comes from the musikos agon, the musical competitions. The Greeks didn't separate jocks and theater kids the way modern high schools do. They believed in the concept of kolokagathia, the beautiful and the good. A perfect citizen was expected to be physically dominant and culturally refined. You should be able to crush a man's skull with a discus and weep at a well-composed haiku. So, right alongside the boxing and the wrestling, you have the poetry slams. These aren't short, snappy readings. These are endurance events. A poet might stand up and recite an epic that goes on for 3 hours. The subject matter is usually heavy. The wrath of gods, the genealogy of kings, the tragic fate of heroes. And you, the audience, are expected to listen to every syllable. You sit there, baking in the sun. The poet is droning on in a rhythmic meter. Dactyl, dactyl, spondee. It is hypnotic. It is also incredibly boring if the poet isn't good. But you can't leave, because this is a religious festival. Listening to the poem is an offering to the god. If you walk away to go buy more figs, you might offend the muses. Then come the kitharodes, the lyre players. These are the rock stars of the ancient world. They wear elaborate, gold-embroidered robes that cost more than your entire village. They strike poses. They have fan clubs. When a famous kithara player takes the stage, the crowd goes wild, screaming just as loud as they did for the wrestler. But the most bizarre category of competition, by modern standards, is the competition for heralds. Yes, there is a competitive event for shouting. Heralds, carics, are the guys who make announcements. In a world without PA systems or microphones, having a loud, clear voice is a superpower. So, naturally, they made it a sport. Men stand in the center of the arena and shout. They shout proclamations. They shout names. Judges listen for volume, clarity, and breath control. Imagine a stadium full of people silently listening to a man scream, testing, 1, 2, 3, and then holding up scorecards. I gave him a 9.5 for volume, but his diction on the second syllable was a bit muddy. This strange blend of violence and art reaches its absolute peak of absurdity with the involvement of the Roman Emperor Nero. Now, Nero shows up much later in the timeline, around 67 AD, but his visit to the Isthmian Games is the stuff of legend. Nero fancies himself an artist. He loves to sing, he loves to act, he loves to drive chariots, and because he is the emperor of Rome and a man known for killing people who disagree with him, nobody is brave enough to tell him he sucks. Nero arrives at the Isthmus and enters everything. He enters the singing contest. He enters the chariot race. During the chariot race, he falls out of his chariot. He literally crashes. He has to be helped back in. He fails to finish the race, and yet he is declared the winner. The judges, sweating profusely and valuing their heads, decide that he would have won if he hadn't crashed, which is a logic that only works if you're a terrified subject of a tyrant. Then he enters the singing contest. He stands on stage for hours. He forbids anyone from leaving the theater. Historians, specifically Suetonius and Cassius Dio, tell us that women faked giving birth just to get carried out by medics. Men pretended to die so they could be carried out on stretchers. Others jumped over the back walls of the theater to escape the emperor's never-ending musical recital. Nero wins that too. He wins every event he enters. He collects the celery wreaths or pine, depending on the year, with tears in his eyes, believing he is a God-given talent, while the audience nurses their dehydration and trauma. This is the chaotic energy of the Isthmian Games. It is a place where high art meets low corruption. It is a place where you can watch a man recite the Iliad while a man 10 feet away is selling salted fish. Historians and archaeologists still debate the exact layout of the musical venues in the early classical period. Did they share the stadium? Was there a temporary wooden stage? Or did the poets just stand on a mound of dirt and hope for the best? The acoustics of the landscape suggest they might have used the natural slope of the hills, but the sheer logistical nightmare of coordinating a flute solo next to a chariot race is something that keeps ancient acoustic engineers awake at night. As the sun begins to dip lower, the sounds start to blend together. The rhythmic thrum 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 of the lyres mixes with the crunch 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 of the wrestlers' feet on the sand. The shouting of the heralds blends with the haggling of the merchants. You are tired. You have spent the day consuming culture and calories in equal measure. Your head is buzzing with bad poetry and the sight of blood. You have a souvenir cup you overpaid for. You have a headache from the sun, but there is something undeniably vibrant about it. This isn't the sterile, quiet museum atmosphere we associate with classical history. This is messy. It's loud. It's human. You watch a group of athletes walking back toward the tents. They are battered, bruised, and covered in dust. Walking right next to them is a poet, holding his lyre like a shield, looking equally exhausted from the emotional toll of reciting 5,000 lines of verse. They nod to each other. Game, recognize, game. You realize that in this world, sweating over a poem and sweating over a fight are seen as the same thing. An agon, a struggle, a contest. You are fighting to be excellent, whether that means throwing a javelin further than anyone else or finding the perfect rhyme for Aphrodite. You take a bite of a stale honey cake you bought from a vendor who swore it was baked this morning. It wasn't. You lean back against the warm stone. The purple sky over the Corinthian Gulf is darkening. The lanterns in the market stalls are starting to flicker on, creating a sea of little stars on the earth to match the ones appearing above. The games aren't over. The night festivities are just beginning. There will be drinking, there will be boasting, there will be business deals signed by torchlight. But for now, you just close your eyes and let the cacophony of the ancient world wash over you. The music, the shouting, the buying, the selling. It is the sound of civilization in all its noisy, mismatched glory. We are leaving the sun-baked, noisy chaos of the isthmus now. We are traveling west, across the Adriatic, to a place where order is fetishized, where engineering is a religion, and where dinner is a competitive sport. We are entering a Roman triclinium, a dining room. You are reclining on a couch. That's the first thing you notice. You aren't sitting up straight like a modern person at a dinner table. You are lying on your left side, propped up on cushions. It's a posture that says, I am not going anywhere for the next 6 hours. In front of you is a table, and on that table is a jug of wine. Now, here is where your modern instincts are going to get you into trouble. In the 21st century, if you want a glass of wine, you pull the cork, you tilt the bottle, and you pour. The liquid that comes out is the finished product. The winemaker did the work, bottled it, and now you just consume it. If you do that here, if you grab that amphora and pour the dark, heavy liquid straight into your cup and drink it, the entire room will go silent. The music will stop, the slaves will stare, your host will look at you with a mixture of horror and pity. You have just committed an act of supreme barbarism. You see, in the Roman mind, drinking wine, neat, undiluted, is something that only three types of beings do: gods, alcoholics, and barbarians. To a Roman, drinking straight wine is like eating a stick of butter or drinking a glass of espresso concentrate. It is raw material. It is unfinished. It is dangerous. They believe that drinking wine without water leads to madness, to violence, and to the collapse of social order. It is the behavior of the Scythians or the Gauls, hairy, unwashed people who live in mud huts and don't understand the concept of a sewer system. To be Roman is to dilute. Civilization, in a very literal sense, is the act of mixing water with wine. The center of the party is not the food, it is the crater. This is a massive, wide-mouthed bowl placed in the middle of the room. It is the communal mixing station. This is where the alchemy happens. At the beginning of the evening, a king of the feast, or rex bibendi, is chosen. This is usually determined by rolling dice. If you win, you become the dictator of the liver. It is your job to decide the ratio of water to wine for the entire night. You have absolute power. You read the room. Is this a serious philosophical discussion? Maybe a heavy ratio of 3 parts water to 1 part wine. Is it a rowdy celebration? Maybe you go dangerous with a 1-to-1 mix. Is the goal to just keep everyone pleasantly buzzed but coherent until dawn? You dial it in accordingly. This ritual transforms drinking from a solitary consumption habit into a collective experience. Everyone drinks the same strength. You are all on the same wavelength. You rise and fall together. But let's talk about the water. Because the wine is so heavily diluted, the quality of the water matters immensely. We tend to think of Romans as wine snobs, but they were actually water snobs. A wealthy host will brag not just about the vintage of his Falernian wine, but about the source of the water he is ruining it with. Oh, this, he might say, waving a hand. This is aqua marcia, brought in by aqueduct from the mountains. Very crisp, low mineral content. Historians and archaeologists still debate the strength of ancient wine. Some argue that Roman wine was significantly higher in alcohol, essentially a syrup or a concentrate necessitating the water just to make it palatable. They point to methods of boiling down grape must, making defrutum, which would sugar load the fermentation. Others argue the alcohol content was standard, the 12-14%, and the dilution was purely cultural, a way to drink for 8 hours without passing out. If the syrup theory is true, then drinking it neat wouldn't just be socially awkward, it would be physically revolting, like drinking cough syrup. But the obsession with temperature adds another layer of complexity. Romans are Goldilocks drinkers. They hate lukewarm wine. They want it either scalding hot or freezing cold. In the winter, you drink calda, warm wine mixed with spices, heated in special bronze braziers that look like samovars. It's the ancient equivalent of mulled wine, designed to fight off the damp chill of a villa with no central heating. But in the summer, they want ice. This is a logistical nightmare in a world without electricity. To get a cold drink in August in Rome, you need snow. The snow trade is a massive hidden industry. Runners and donkey trains haul packed snow down from the mountains, insulated with straw. It is stored in deep underground pits. It is a luxury item more expensive than the wine itself. If you are truly wealthy, you don't just put ice in your wine, which dilutes it further and might be dirty. You use a sictor, a specialized cooler. It's a mushroom-shaped pot of wine that floats inside a larger crater filled with snow. Or you use a column nivarium, a silver strainer filled with snow. You pour the wine through the snow into the cup. It chills the liquid instantly. Imagine the decadence of this. You are sitting in the heat of Rome, sweating in your toga, and you are handed a silver cup frosted with condensation, filled with liquid that has touched the frozen heart of a mountain. It is a flex of incredible proportions. It says, "I am so rich, I can command the winter to visit me in the summer." This careful preparation, the measuring, the mixing, the heating, the cooling, serves a psychological purpose. It slows everything down. Drinking is not a race. It is a marathon. A convivium, dinner party, can last for 6, 7, 8 hours. If you drank full-strength wine, the party would be over in 45 minutes. You'd be asleep or fighting the host. By watering it down, the Romans engineered a way to maintain that golden hour of buzz, that chatty, warm, confident feeling indefinitely. It is a form of chemical engineering. They are titrating their intoxication. You watch the slave ladle the mixture from the crater into your cup. A kylix, a shallow, wide bowl that is terrible for preventing spills but great for letting the wine breathe. The liquid is a pale red, almost translucent. It doesn't look like our wine. It looks like a tea. You take a sip. It is refreshing. It is light. It tastes of grapes, yes, but also of the minerals in the water. It is a beverage you can drink by the gallon. And you will. There is a dark side to this civilized drinking, though. The social hierarchy dictates what kind of wine you get. If you are the guest of honor, you get the good stuff, the Falernian, the K-Cuban. If you are a lower status client sitting at the end of the table, you might get Vapa, flat, sour wine that is one step away from vinegar. And if you are really low on the totem pole, you get Posca. Posca is the Gatorade of the ancient world. It's vinegar mixed with water and maybe some herbs. It's what the soldiers drink on the march. It's not wine anymore. It's a hydration strategy. So, as you recline on your cushion, feeling the rough fabric against your elbow, you realize that the cup in your hand is a map of your social standing. The ratio of water, the temperature of the mix, the quality of the vintage, it all tells you exactly how much you matter to the host. You watch the Rex Vivendi call for another round. He signals to the slaves to add more water. The conversation is getting heated. Arguments about politics, about poetry, about the price of fish. He wants to cool things down. He is using the water to dilute the aggression in the room. It is a system of control. The Romans controlled the world, they controlled the water, and they controlled their own minds. One watered down cup at a time. You take another sip. It's cold, it's sharp, and most importantly, it's civilized. You are safe from the barbarism of sobriety, but protected from the chaos of drunkenness. You are floating in the perfect diluted middle. You are still reclining on that couch, the cushions shifting slightly beneath your weight. You lift the cup to your lips again, expecting the familiar, fruity taste of grapes, perhaps something like a modern Merlot or a Pinot Noir. You take a sip, and you immediately want to spit it out, because this wine tastes like a pine tree that has been dunked in the ocean. Welcome to the complex, challenging, and frankly bizarre flavor profile of Roman vintage. In the modern world, we value purity in wine. We talk about the terroir, the soil, the sun, the grape itself. If a winemaker added a bucket of seawater or a handful of tree sap to the barrel, they would be sued. But in ancient Rome, the grape is just the beginning. It is merely a canvas upon which the winemaker paints a chaotic masterpiece of flavors. Let's start with the salt. You smack your lips. There is a distinct, briny tang to the drink. It's not subtle. It's like licking a rock at the beach. This is because Roman winemakers frequently added seawater to their wine. To your modern palate, this sounds like insanity. Salt dehydrates you. Wine dehydrates you. Combining them seems like a recipe for a headache of biblical proportions. But the Romans had their reasons. First, there is the practical chemistry. Salt is a preservative. In a world without sulfites or sterile bottling lines, wine is constantly trying to turn into vinegar. It is fighting a losing battle against oxygen and bacteria. Adding a precise amount of boiled, concentrated seawater helps to stabilize the wine. It keeps it from spoiling on the long, hot journey from a Greek island to a Roman table. But secondly, and more confusingly, they actually like the taste. They believe the salt cuts the cloying sweetness of the grape. It adds a savory umami punch. The famous wines of Kos are renowned specifically for their heavy saltwater content. It is a Gatorade logic, replenishing the salt you lose while sweating in your toga, while simultaneously getting you drunk. So, you are drinking a saline alcoholic beverage, but that's not the dominant flavor. The dominant flavor is wood varnish. You run your tongue over your teeth. They feel coated in something sticky. That is resin. In the modern world, wine is aged in oak barrels that impart a gentle vanilla or smoky flavor. In Rome, wine is stored in amphora, large clay jars. But clay is porous. If you pour liquid into raw clay, it seeps out. By the time the jar gets to Rome, it would be empty. So, the insides of the jars are lined with pitch, hot liquid pine resin. This creates a waterproof seal, but it also leaches flavor into the wine. Intense, aggressive flavor. It tastes of turpentine, sap, and forest floor. It is a sharp, medicinal taste that coats the mouth. If you have ever tried modern Greek retsina, you have experienced a faint echo of this, but the Roman version is far more potent. And it doesn't stop at the lining. Winemakers often add more resin directly to the mix as a flavoring agent. They throw in pine cones. They add mastic. They want that biting, terpene-rich kick. To a Roman, a wine without that resinous burn feels flat and boring. It lacks character. So, you are drinking salty, pine-flavored grape juice. But we aren't done yet. The Romans view wine less as a finished product and more as a soup base. They love to season it. If you are drinking Conditum Paradoxum, a high-end spiced wine, it has been boiled with honey, pepper, mastic, saffron, and dates. It is a heavy aromatic syrup. It's closer to a mulled wine or a liqueur than a table wine. If you are drinking something cheaper, it might be flavored with fenugreek to make it smell older than it is, or iris root, or cheese. Yes, there are records of cheese being used in wine mixtures, perhaps creating a savory, fondue-like beverage that baffles the modern historian. And then, there is the sweetness. Romans have a relentless sweet tooth. Sugar doesn't exist yet, at least not in the granular white form we know. Honey is the go-to, but honey is expensive. So, winemakers use a cheaper, more industrial sweetener, sapa or defrutum. This is grape juice, must, that has been boiled down until it is a thick black sludge, concentrating the natural sugars. It's essentially grape molasses. They pour gallons of this into the wine to boost the alcohol potential and the sweetness. But here is the boring history detail that makes you shudder. The best sapa is made by boiling the juice in lead pots. Why lead? Because lead acetate, a chemical compound that forms when acidic grape juice reacts with the metal, is sweet. It is literally called sugar of lead. If you boil the juice in copper, it tastes metallic. If you boil it in lead, it tastes delicious. So, that rich, velvety sweetness on your tongue, that is a neurotoxin. We touched on lead in the makeup, but here you are ingesting it directly. It is adding a heavy, metallic sweetness to the drink that no natural sugar can replicate. It's the secret ingredient in the Roman Empire's slow cognitive decline. Historians and gastrophiles still debate the palatability of Roman wine. Some brave experimental archaeologists have tried to recreate these recipes, mixing seawater, pine tar, fenugreek, and boiled grape syrup. The consensus is usually that it is an acquired taste. It is dense. It is overwhelming. It attacks the senses rather than seducing them. It compares more to a modern vermouth, a gin, or a heavily medicinal Amaro than to a vintage Cabernet. It was a drink designed to stand up to the strong flavors of Roman food. The fish sauce, garum, the garlic, the vinegar. A delicate wine would vanish against that culinary backdrop. You needed a wine that could punch back. You look around the room at the other diners. They are smacking their lips, savoring the terroir of the pine pitch. They are discussing the nose of the pitch. Ah, yes, a fine Calabrian. Resin, very sharp. They are refined connoisseurs of tree sap. The atmosphere in the room smells of this mixture. A heavy, heady cloud of alcohol, spice, and wood. It's a drowsy smell. The lead and the alcohol work together to create a heavy-limbed lethargy. You take another sip, trying to bypass the salt and find the fruit. It's difficult. The wine feels thick. It leaves a sediment in the bottom of the cup. You realize that for the Romans, conquering nature meant dominating it in the cup as well. They didn't just accept the grape as it was. They preserved it with the sea, sealed it with the forest, sweetened it with metal, and spiced it with the trade winds. It is a beverage of empire, incorporating every element of the known world into a single, confusing swallow. It is savory. It is strange. And as the resin coats your tongue, numbing it slightly, you decide that maybe, just maybe, if you drink enough of it, it will start to taste good. Or at least, you will stop caring that it tastes like a salted pine cone. You set the cup down on the table. The heavy, resinous taste lingers on your tongue, but as the warmth of the wine spread through your chest, you realize something else. You aren't just getting a buzz. You are taking your medicine. To the Roman mind, there is no clear line between the wine cellar and the pharmacy. This cup isn't just a beverage, it is a prescription. You are living in a world dominated by the medical theories of Galen and Hippocrates. They believe the human body is a sack of fluids called humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health is simply the balance of these fluids. Sickness is an imbalance. If you have too much phlegm, you are cold and wet. If you have too much bile, you are hot and angry. And wine? Wine is the ultimate regulator. It is viewed as a heating agent. It generates warmth in the body. If you are old, which is considered a cold state of being, or if you are suffering from a cold stomach ailment, wine is the cure. It fires up the internal engine. It cooks the raw humors inside you. So when the host pours you a specific vintage, he isn't just pairing it with the fish, he is diagnosing you. You look a bit pale, Lucius, he might say. You have too much cold phlegm in your chest. Here, drink this heavy, dark red wine. It is high in tannins. It will dry you out and heat you up. It's a medical consultation with every refill. Doctors of the era prescribe wine for everything. Feeling lethargic? White wine. Feeling feverish? Well, maybe diluted wine to cool you down. Logic was flexible. Need to wash out a wound? Wine. Need to help a mother recover from childbirth? Wine. It is the aspirin, the antibiotic, and the antidepressant of the ancient world all rolled into one. This medicalization changes how you drink. You aren't partying. You are maintaining your equilibrium. You are fine-tuning your biological machine. Excessive drinking is bad not just because it's rude, but because it overheats the body, boiling the blood and leading to frenzies. Moderate drinking is a health regimen, but beyond the personal body, wine represents the health of the empire itself. Look out the window of the triclinium. Imagine the hillsides surrounding Rome. They are covered in vineyards, rows and rows of vines planted in perfect straight lines. To a Roman general or politician, a vineyard is not just a farm. It is a symbol of conquest. The vine is a wild, chaotic plant. Left to its own devices, it creeps, it climbs, it strangles trees, it creates a tangled mess. But the Roman farmer tames it. He forces it into lines, he prunes it, he disciplines it, he makes the chaotic forces of nature march in formation, just like a legion. When Rome conquers a new territory, be it in Gaul, Spain, or Britain, one of the first things they do is plant vineyards. It is a way of stamping civilization onto the landscape. It says, "We are here. We have brought order. We have brought the grid." So, drinking the wine is an act of patriotism. You are consuming the fruits of Roman order. You are internalizing the discipline of the empire. This is why the barbarian way of drinking, binging on beer or mead until you fall over, is so reviled. It lacks that discipline. It lacks the philosophy. Romans drink to enhance conversation, to build bonds, and to reinforce the social hierarchy. It is a controlled burn. Historians still argue about the actual efficacy of this wine medicine. On one hand, the antiseptic properties of the alcohol likely did prevent some waterborne diseases, making wine drinkers statistically healthier than water drinkers in some regions. On the other hand, the lead acetate in the liver damage probably balanced the scales in the wrong direction. It was a slow poison masked as a cure, but as you lie there, the sounds of the banquet softening around you, you don't care about the lead. You feel the heavy, warm embrace of the conditum. The spices, the pepper, the saffron tingle in your throat. You feel balanced. The cold dampness of the evening has been driven away by the artificial heat of the grape. You watch the lamplight flicker on the painted walls. The murals depict scenes of harvest. Happy peasants stomping grapes, fat cherubs pouring wine. It is a vision of a world where nature is bountiful, obedient, and sweet. You are part of that system. You are a citizen of the vine. You have navigated the muddy roads of the Middle Ages, survived the toxic vanity of the Tudor court, cheered in the dust of the Isthmus, and now, finally, you have found your rest on a Roman couch, cup in hand. The host signals for the final bowl, the wind down cup. It is watered down heavily, mostly water, really, with just a whisper of wine for flavor. It is a signal. The night is ending. The agon is over. The struggle for survival, for beauty, for glory, for health. It can all pause for a few hours. You set the cup down, you close your eyes. The noise of the room fades into a gentle hum. The heavy meal sits warm in your belly. The medicine has done its work. You are safe, you are warm, you are ready to drift away. Word count, 10:12, wind down. And so we leave the Roman villa. We float up, away from the flickering oil lamps, away from the smell of spiced wine and resin. We drift out through the open window into the cool night air of the ancient world. Below us, the vineyards stretch out in the darkness, sleeping in their perfect orderly rows. The leaves rustle softly in the wind, a sound like thousands of tiny paper whispers. We drift further, moving back through the layers of time we visited tonight. We glide over the Isthmus of Corinth. The stadium is empty now. The shouting heralds are gone. The dust has settled on the track. There is only the rhythmic, eternal sound of the two seas, the Saronic and the Corinthian lapping gently against the shore. Hush, hush, hush. The pine trees sway, dropping their needles in. Silence covering the ground where the crowds once roared. We drift further north into the mists of England. The Tudor palaces are dark. The heavy velvet curtains are drawn tight. The wigs are on their stands. The white lead masks are washed away, and the people are sleeping, their faces soft and natural in the dark. There is no one to judge them now. There is no sun to hide from, just the quiet, protective shadow of the night. And finally, we drift back to the muddy roads of the Middle Ages. But the mud is frozen now, solid and still. The carts have stopped rolling. The geese are asleep, heads tucked under wings. The Dave shovels are leaning against the walls of the cottages. Inside, the families are huddled together, a warm, breathing pile of humanity. They are not moving. For a few hours, the relocation has stopped. The anxiety of the harvest is gone. There is only the deep collective rhythm of sleep. You are there with them, but you are not cold. You are not hungry. You are simply an observer floating in the safe, quiet space between the stars and the earth. The history is over. The dates and facts are dissolving into the dark. There is nothing left to learn tonight. There is nothing left to solve. There is only the night, heavy and soft, wrapping around you like a warm wool blanket. Let your breathing match the slow rhythm of the sleeping world. In and out, slow and steady. The past is a story that has already been written. You don't need to worry about it. You can just let it be.